Well, my masterclass is now available. Woo! And it can be found on my store. It'll take you to my Gumroad page. It covers all skin types, 7,000 plus word accompanying book that goes with it, that goes into everything I covered in the video. That's 2.5 hours, but is in written form, lists, all kinds of stuff. And yeah, so my masterclass is out. Give it a shot. The first 100 buyers, I believe it's still active. There are some slots left. The first 100 buyers get 10% off. Launch 10, if you write the word launch 10, no capitals or anything, just launch 10, you can get 10% off for the first 100 buyers. So upon checkout, you can apply it. Thank you to everyone who's bought it. Thank you to everyone who supported me while building it. I started building it in freaking November last year, and I just released it last Wednesday. Thank you, everybody. And please spread the word. It's applicable to all learning styles. The style itself is applicable to all commercial styles. It's got a bit of realism. It's got a bit of beauty. It's got a bit of everything. Hopefully the skin types and the grayscale level, 2 separate tutorials in there, are good and helpful for you guys. I don't teach color at the same time as I teach grayscale because I'm a good teacher. I teach grayscale first and then color comes after. And everyone who's used it has so far told me this is so much more information than $90 worth. This should be $500. And it really should be, because that's what private tutoring is, 500 and up. And that's what I'm teaching them. Everything I teach in private tutoring for the portrait section is included in this $90 class. And it's at $80 if you use the code launch10. I'm just over the moon. I'm so happy it's done. I'm so happy it's out there. It's everything I've ever learned in the last 10 years. And it's like I put my baby out there and I worked so hard on it, and I'm just so happy. Let's get started. I was just gonna, render this. I was just gonna take care of it. The way I render anything really. There's no particular theory behind what I'm going to do today. I'm just going to talk about how to make these eyes look more realistic and what goes into them. And then talk about, all of that other stuff, my masterclass, and why it's a good thing to invest in. So portraits is probably the first thing I ever drew. Portraits are like the super important thing to me, because when I imagine why I got into art is basically because I was imagining characters I wanted to be, characters whose story I wanted to tell, just characters I saw in my mind. So naturally, again, you're just drawn to the portrait first. Primarily, that's the thing you want to learn. Here you're painting a psyche, you're painting a past, you're painting a character's experiences. That's why it's super, super important to me. And that's why it should be important to you, because portraits are the backbone of your portfolio, mostly because people will hire you to paint their characters. People will hire you to paint their people, who they have envisioned, their story, who's carrying their story. And really, yes, it's gratifying, and anime has worked for a lot of people, but for some people, they want to take it even further. It's just not satisfying enough for them. I'm just making the eyes more spherical here. And so they want that extra level of realism, that realism outside of cartoony characters. That realism adds another whole world of believability, obviously, because we're closer to realism this way. So the character that we imagined in our mind, that our commissioner imagined in their mind, suddenly has even more reality to them, because now there's light falling on their face. Now they are something that can cast a shadow. What? They're something that can live in a world that is full volume. That's insane. That live in a world that has gravity, that has space, that has matter, that has X, Y, and Z axis, that has 3 dimensions. But that all sounds really complicated when I say it, but it really is not that complicated. Why isn't it that complicated? Because it just takes one small thing that you have to do in order to start taking your characters more seriously and making them look more realistic. And that is, start seeing, the very first step for any tutorials, before anything, is stop seeing your characters as anything more than a building. When you look at an eye, see the sphere. When you look at a nose, see the rectangular or triangular prism. When you see lips, see the cylinder. And that's what I have always talked about time and time again, in my tutorials across, you know, the last 10 years of my teaching. That is what I've always talked about. The individual shapes of each feature, how they combine into the total shape of each section, each local section. For instance, eye socket into eye socket into eye, into nose, eye socket and eye into cheek. You're just expanding the neighborhood each time and developing something out of it. So right now, all I'm doing is I'm just adding that dimensional volume to each feature that was previously sketched very two-dimensionally. When you look at these beautiful splashes, this card art, and you're just to tears. I used to be inspired to tears looking at the amazing work that used to be on DeviantArt front page. And I used to wonder, why the hell does it look that good? And it was because of the sphere. It was because there's core shadows there that are so effective but so invisible that a beginner would never have been able to find them, or would have found them, but after years and years of looking for them and doing studies and finally stumbling on, oh my God, this whole time I've just been ignoring the most basic shape under every shape, which is just the geometric equivalent of every shape, the anatomy. So that has been my campaign for years and years, is to give you guys that thing that took me years to develop, which is just the vision, the ability to see the sphere and the cylinder. So what I'm doing now, every decision I've made around the eye now is just about that sphere. I zoom out so that I can make sure my sphere is respected on all sides. So for instance, here in the waterline, it's just leaving the sphere's core shadow. So I'm just going to bring that down. Well, the line gave you artificial contrast. Not real edge contrast, not real light contrast, artificial contrast. And that's why your work doesn't look realistic. And the very first lesson in the masterclass is the sphere. That is the very, very first lesson. And in fact, I paint over a sphere. I teach you how to literally block onto a sphere and turn it into a face. Let's say we were to cross, you know, just a cross-section examination of like this section here. Or, you know what, forget the top part. Let's just sever out this and bring it out. So what does that look like to you guys? It looks like an organic form study, right? And a lot of my students today who I asked this question were just also a bit surprised, and I've just been doing this a little bit. I've been taking pieces out, and it just looks like, yeah, an organic form study, a cylinder. And that's really all that I was doing this entire time, is just little variations of that. Let's take out this section and paste it here, right? Just another little bean shape or organic form study. So that's how you start seeing more of the satisfying edge related contrast. Because when you have an object against a background, that edge is what's separating you from the background. The fact that you just didn't blend this shade with the background, that edge is what's keeping you from just creating a floating, soft, fuzzy thing or cloud, right? But as a line-dependent student, that's your first step. And so you do that step in tandem with learning how to paint a sphere. You do that, you know, it's like a double effect. You learn how to respect the edge when you paint basic spheres, and you learn how to paint a sphere to know where a core shadow is. So those are the first two lessons you have to learn in order to start having better, more realism in your portraits. Your portraits need it. Your portraits need real contrast and edges, real core shadows, realism, period, because they just do more when they're more realistic. They do more for you. So your core shadows and your edges, those are the first two, because this person is early. I wouldn't say they're beginner, but they're early in their journey. And I'm just being honest with them for the sake of their improvement. They're early in their journey, and I feel like that bit of advice is the best advice to give them right now. Learn where your edges are. How do I know where my edges are? Learn what the original shapes are. How do I know what the original shapes are? Those are very easy to locate because they're just the shapes that look the most logical to the object that they represent. And then those edges come out of these shapes. These shapes merge together eventually and become like one whole face. But as they connect, these planes get blended, but we still maintain most of their edges. Like look at the sides of the nose, we don't blend everything. And then there's the core shadows. Every shape is so simple. It should be very easy to find a core shadow on a cylinder, right? And it should be very easy to find core shadows on a cube. I mean, you just have to think about where the cube is, where the light is, and most likely this is the side of the cube that is the most dark, and that's where the cast shadow goes. Core shadow is the darkest point on the object. Cast shadow is the object falling on the ground around it. Sphere, also very logical. It's just the far back side of the sphere if the light is coming in this way. The cast shadow moves this way. That's the core shadow, bit of bounce light, you're done. So it's very easy to find where the core shadows and edges are on basic shapes. And if you want to improve your portraits fast, you have to get rid of the complexity of the subject of face. So you have to start seeing the face as a building. And that is essentially what I was trying to explain. You have to understand the sphere. One day I'll say the cylinder is the most important shape. One day I'll say the sphere is the most important shape. But they both mean the same thing, which is understand your geometric anatomy shapes. Learn all the shapes. The cylinder and the sphere, I would rush those, but then I would say, no, rush the cube because you have to learn how to block as well. But you can see how they're all so important. All of them, it's like saying which child is your favorite. It's hard to say which child is my favorite. I love them all equally. I love the shapes all equally. So I don't have any one shape to recommend to you. Each student is different. Some students are naturals with the soft brush. Would you say you're a natural? Like who here is a natural with the soft brush? In fact, they kind of overuse the soft brush. I feel like students who are natural with the soft brush don't need to study the sphere so much, but they need to study the cube. But there are students who are so good with the cube, they just do not understand the sphere at all. They don't know how to calm down, lower the opacity, just blend and let the radial shading do the work. So they end up overdoing it, and they just don't, either just end up with a ball of mush or a sphere with zero definition. Every student is different. That's why I have, many different types of form study assignments for my students. But the most important form study assignment is just the fact that you're doing a form study assignment is the one that you did. That's just do anything you can get your hands on and understand yourself. Are you a blendy blender or are you a technical blocker going into your journey? My masterclass has all of that. It has an entire 3-month schedule for which form studies to do and when. It has a bunch of lists for which blocks to add and when. It has a demonstration on what radial shading is and when to do it. So you're in great hands, and it's not something that I overpriced. It's not something that I made super inaccessible behind a really high paywall. It is everything that you'll need in order to become a better portrait artist, because it doesn't just approach how to draw a pretty face, step 1, pretty, step 2, pretty, step 3, pretty, and then use some dodge tool. Like, that's not what it's about. It's not about, just basically like derivative portraits. It's about the secret code. It's like that saying, give a man a fish or teach him how to fish. I'm teaching you how to sculpt a portrait. You can apply this everywhere, and that's it. Really, it's that you're going to think differently about the way you draw portraits. You're going to think differently about the way you approach anything, not just portraits, form in general. You're going to see how everything relates back to the light and how the light communicates with form and shapes in that space. So all the decisions I've made so far in this illustration are from like back burner knowledge, like from the back of my mind. I really didn't have to think too hard about them. So that's another question that I get a lot, is how do I turn this knowledge that I know I have? And a lot of my students in private tutoring, I'll ask them a question and they'll be able to answer it like right away. But then they wonder and ask me, how is it that when I'm drawing, I don't do that same, it doesn't show that I know these answers. And that's because it's just mileage. Because I've done it so many times, some little exclamation point or exclamation mark will come out and say, hey, this is a little bit washed out. If I didn't blend this area, something will just alert me. Visual instinct will just alert me that it's just, you know, it needs a little bit more blending in this area. For instance, something just alerted me, the nose is way too low contrast and it doesn't make much sense. So I'm throwing in a supporting brush stroke for the core shadow of the nose pointing down. These decisions are being made passively, almost like without me noticing. And that's like your raw skill. That's the real skill. How do you develop skill like that? You develop it the long way. In order to know shortcuts, you have to take the long way first. No matter what school of thought you're from, everyone can agree on that. So how do you take the long way when it comes to all of this? So if you're bad with symmetry, let's say, and you don't have an eye for symmetry, the long way is to start drawing sketch lines to find the symmetry in your work. How do I know where to put shadows where they belong? My shadows aren't great. Sketch out or do more form studies. Find the core shadow in basic shape so that when they combine, maybe even make, you know, semi-basic shapes and combine them together. Maybe study the nose as a combination of form studies, studying nose specific, feature specific studies long enough that you can paint a nose with your eyes closed. So that's basically what it is that a lot of you think that you actively have to apply this knowledge, but your brain does all of the rest. All you have to do is just show up for the mileage. Your brain won't do a task twice and not find a faster way to do it the second time. So all of this stuff you're seeing me do while talking is really not that hard because my brain did the rest. My brain did all the work. And that's what I'm trying to explain to you guys. Get the basic shapes, understand the basics, and then go on from there. You know, it is me trying to promote my masterclass to you guys because I believe in it. I believe in the way I teach. I have spent years perfecting it, and I trust that my students will all be happy. I truly believe everybody who's bought the masterclass is going to improve. I truly believe in it. But it's also because I just want you guys to see that it's not sensationalism, that you can get to the point where you are rendering as freely and painlessly as this. This masterclass isn't just a quick little get rich quick, get good skill quick class. It really is built on the mission statement that you will improve with real skill. You will end up with real skill. It's not a paint by numbers memorization thing. That you will end up with real skill once you're done with this class. Learn your cylinders, learn your spheres. Most importantly for you, I think you need to learn your spheres, learn your fundamentals. That's what fundamentals mean. Fundamentals is like this really scary word that freaks everybody out because they're like, oh my God, I got like, 4 years of fundamentals ahead of me. But it's such a joke. It's such a miserable joke. Whoever went around telling people fundamentals take years, I wish I could find you and kick your ass, because fundamentals can be learned in like a month. Fundamentals can be perfected in so short a time as long as you're working efficiently. Artists just make it difficult. Our students just make it harder for themselves for no reason. My masterclass is 100% practical. It goes right in the very first shape we draw together is a sphere. I don't take any shortcuts. I don't say after the fact, hey, you should look out for core shadows. I start with a big fat core shadow right halfway across the face. And it stays there for the rest of the portrait. It is just one big building block, and then the rest of the blocks go on top. And then blocking comes after that. Of course, that makes sense because now we have to think about features and edges. And so theory and practice are just hand in hand as I'm teaching. So yeah, I've been meaning to do more of these super beginner friendly critique hours. They're just like super basic stuff. And obviously today was about my masterclass. I'm so excited about it. I teach you where to put a block. You want to know where to put blocks on the face? It's there. You want to know where to blend on the face? It's there. And I'm just adding the highlights now. I'm adding them with my blocking brush. So you get my brushes as well with the masterclass. Every brush I use in the entire process. But to recap, it's available on my Gumroad. Gumroad.istabrack.com or istabrack.gumroad.com or gumroad.com/istabrack. I think all of that works. Comes with brushes, comes with text, it comes with templates. 3 months worth of homework. For everyone who might be interested in taking this further than a portrait, there's form study assignments. And if you don't know what some of the stuff in there, like traced over diagram, like if you don't know what that is, all you have to do is look up my video history on YouTube. And there's tons and tons of videos explaining what it is and what those are, and how to do them. I recommend sculpting in there. There's a lot of really cool stuff, but I really recommend you follow this schedule strictly, because some assignments are too advanced towards the 3rd month. But I truly believe like everybody who will take this on will improve. By the 3rd month, you guys are not even going to recognize your art. And a lot of years, 10 years went into developing my specific teaching style and this method. And it works. It works for everyone. If you don't believe that it works, you just have to go to my website and go to my private tutoring tab and scroll down to all the before and afters and all these years of private tutoring and teaching, and just look at how my students have improved. There's no student that books with me that doesn't improve, and I can say that proudly and without prejudice. I'm just so proud of that, and that's because it's always going to be form focused, form oriented, technical. Mixed in with theory, a good balance of theory and technique and practice. It's based, I'm always mileage based. I'm always about getting students in the canvas as soon as possible, and you are in good hands. And everyone who's used it so far has said that it is a lot of information, and it's more information than they expected, and I hope you guys feel the same about it. So let's take a look at the before and after. Okay, so it is very realistic in that the shadows all seem to be harmonized. We're harmonizing all of the shadows. They all represent the same light source. Before, you had big patches of highlight just sitting in the middle of the portrait that didn't belong to any light. They made no sense. Why would the cheeks have more light than the forehead? So that's the unity in both skin tone, which you didn't have, and in shadows, which you didn't have. So shadow unity to the light source and skin tone unity to the base tone of the skin. And those are the 2 big things that I changed today. I'll let you guys go. Thank you everyone for coming today. Again, my masterclass is out. Please consider buying it on Gumroad. Launch 10, launch and the numbers 1 and 0 for 10% off if you want it. It's only available for the first 100 buyers. There may be some left, but thank you everyone, and I'll see you guys next class. Bye.